going to win.
Saquon Barkley out of the backfield. I love how y'all talked about Colin Kaepernick like this brother, like we just saw him last week. The man has not really played football in 2 years. And one would argue 4 because he really hasn't had an opportunity to do much since Jim Harbaugh left.
Ding, Jim Harbaugh, his last handler.
Because that was the quarterback that believed in him and the San Francisco 49ers as his organization.
And notice, the last team that really was trying to push to sign Colin Kaepernick was who? The Baltimore Ravens, at least allegedly. And who's the coach of the Baltimore Ravens? John Harbaugh.
Was an absolute mess his last 2 years there, particularly with Chip Kelly. Don't get me started with that. So when you look at it from that perspective, thinking that Colin Kaepernick gets to walk off the street and all of a sudden he's going to be this dude. We want Colin Kaepernick to have a job in the NFL, just like we're happy Eric Reed has a job in the NFL. I definitely believe in Colin Kaepernick as an athlete. But when we talk about dropping back to pass the football, the fact of the matter is there is no evidence to support that this dude can just come in and get
I'm not saying start him right away, but you got to bring him in at some point to learn the system.
But what you're saying is when you bring him in, you're getting...
Right, you have to bring Colin Kaepernick in at some point to learn a system, but why would you bring him in the first place? He's not 22 years old. He's 30, 31 years old. The only reason in my mind why Max Kellerman will bring up something like this is because either he was paid to do so or because he's just trying to make a splash with a hot take.
Giving up on the season. The season's over. Eli Manning is not the answer when they're still very much in the hunt. This division isn't the best division in football.
Definitely not.
The best guys up there are 2 and 3 right now. So they're definitely still in the hunt for all of this, and they have to figure out how to just get some wins together. They played a really good Carolina team and had a chance to win. It took a record-breaking field goal to win the game. So I think they still have an ability to win games and be in the hunt and make this thing come down to the end.
Why do you say you up on the season if you sign Kaepernick? I'm not saying start him right away, but sign
you just said
start. No.
You just said they needed guys at quarterback.
Why would you bring him on? Why?
Because if you have Kaepernick on the team now, and the Giants find out a way to scrap their way back into this season
with Eli, is what you're saying.
With Eli, and Eli starts to falter because they may do it in spite of Eli, the way they were in that game in spite of Eli yesterday. Then you at least have an option. And next season, if Wallett is not ready, if you don't have, there's no obvious quarterback in this draft, guys. There's no week 1 ready to start quarterback. Wallett may have potential as like a Chad Pennington type guy eventually. It ain't going to be next year. And if Eli gets worse, which is likely, he cannot.
If Eli gets worse, he'll still be better than Colin Kaepernick.
Cannot start next year. So you need someone on your team who knows how to play with these guys, who knows the system.
But you said it yourself, there's no guy out there next year. And I don't think Colin Kaepernick can come in here and just be God's savior all of a sudden being removed from the game.
Can he be better than Eli?
That remains to be seen. I can't make that adjustment. I can't make that assessment from a running perspective. Yes.
First of all, stop.
And Victor Cruz, you should be ashamed of yourself, man. You're supposed to say right away, hell no. Of course, from a running perspective, Colin Kaepernick is going to be better than Eli. But throwing the football, absolutely not. That man, Colin Kaepernick, has no touch. He has no timing. He has very low accuracy. His throwing motion is off. It's elongated and his release is slow. He telegraphs who he's going to throw to. I'm sorry, he's just not an NFL quarterback. You know, like Jay-Z said, he had a spark when he started, but now he's just garbage. The man came out with that run-pass option stuff that was working, the Wildcat stuff that was working back in 2012, 2013. He waxed fat with that for a couple of seasons. The league adapted, and he fell out because he did not possess the multitude of skills that you need to be a great quarterback in the NFL. That's the bottom line.
Asking obvious questions just to buffer your point. We all know Eli at 37 years of age, slower than a snail. We all get his.
But he's always been that. He's never been that guy.
Like we can't see. Boo,
but he knows
can
the
see
playbook.
that. But I will say this to you, Max. I will ask you this question as an Eli supporter.
Yep.
Eli's a career 60% completion passer. The man is completing 71.7% of his passes this season. 71.7%. He's only thrown 3 interceptions. Now, there's obvious.
Thank you, sir. Once again, I don't see the big difference between Eli Manning this year and Eli the last 3 or 4 years, where all of a sudden Max Kellerman has come to this revelation that now they need to sign Colin Kaepernick as a fail-safe for Eli, and we need to prep Colin Kaepernick to replace Eli. The only reason why he's saying this is one of 2 reasons, once again. Either he's trying to put forth a hot take for attention, or he's trying to perpetuate the Marxist agenda to have Colin Kaepernick come back into the NFL so that he can once again take the engineering of the NFL over to the quote-unquote equality angle, where they're going to start bringing in more women and homosexuals and lesbians and so on and so forth. And thereafter, the NFL can be used to socially engineer society at large. But you can tell by how quizzical both Stephen A. Smith and Victor Cruz are of Max Kellerman saying what he's saying, that they themselves are suspecting that something's going on with this guy.
Obviously, we've seen him miss. I saw him in the first half particularly. Oh, my God. Some of the throws. I get it. I totally understand your frustration. But the flip side to it is that he did show up in the second half, and he did do some good things. And all I'm saying to you is, considering that, and from a completion percentage, how his numbers are better than they've ever been, why is it that you're going off to this degree?
I'll explain.
Killing him.
Eli Manning is one of the toughest athletes I've ever seen, and he's one of the most clutch athletes I've ever seen. I love Eli Manning.
Yes, he's an idiot savant. I've said this about Eli Manning before. He's someone who comes up big in moments where you would never expect it, based off of his normal standard of play in games that most people would consider quote-unquote insignificant. Eli Manning always seems to step up in games where you would assume that his play would decrease based off of his normal standard of play in quote-unquote regular games. So he's very strange in that way. You have certain people like that who, when the playoffs come or when big moments come, they just rise to the occasion for whatever reason.
But his immobility, combined now with the lack of accuracy, don't tell me about the completion percentage. That happens nowadays, depending on the offense. He has, arguably, when everyone's healthy, the best offensive weapons in the NFL. You have...
No, sir. No. Right now, the team with the best weapons in the NFL are the LA Rams. You also have the Kansas City Chiefs. You have the Pittsburgh Steelers. To be quite frank with you, even without Le'Veon Bell, I might take the Pittsburgh Steelers pieces over the New York Giants pieces, because I'm not quite sure exactly how good Saquon Barkley is yet. The Giants don't seem to use him enough to me.
You have a generational prospect running back in Saquon who's already shown you.
You don't get to do that by ignoring that offensive line. You don't get to do that.
The offensive line is playing much better than people realize. It's right tackle that's the problem.
That's debatable. Not everyone agrees with you on that.
I'm not saying they're good guys, but they've been good
enough. But you're
claiming
one side of the ball, the one side of the offensive line, when it's all of them. It's not just one guy.
I disagree that they've all been terrible.
Times.
I think the offensive line clearly is not very good, but it's not like it was last year or the year before. It's much improved.
Agree.
Max, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead. No,
the point is, there's a critical mass, a critical level, a tipping point you hit in terms of your athletic ability, where all the other tough and clutch stuff, it doesn't matter anymore. And if Eli...
Right, but how can you establish or substantiate that based on his play this season, Max Kellerman? Max seems to suffer from ageism. He's one of those people who, if Eli Manning was 31 years old playing the same way that he is right now, he'd say, well, it must be the offensive line's fault. But because Eli is 37 or 38 or however old he is, he's going to blame Eli because Max Kellerman has an issue with people after they reach a certain age. We see how much he has honed in on Tom Brady. So it's very obvious that Max Kellerman associates proficiency or efficiency with being a certain age.
Eli's not already at that point, which I believe he is. Boy, that's coming soon. And since you have such talent on the team, get a quarterback who can get it done.
Listen, I'm not interested in you trying to explain all those nuances to me. We all get it. We understand it. You left out one very important point, being this damn slickster that you are. You left this out. You act like, oh, the offensive line. No, they're not that bad. No, I'm not saying that. This is his exact words, right, Molly? I'm not saying they're good. I'm just saying they're not that bad. Well, guess what? If you ain't good, you're bad. That's number one.
It's not true.
Yes, it is. But in the NFL, it is related to the competition. Yes, it is true. Number two, and more importantly, why does the offensive line matter so much? Because Max Kellerman, who did they go against defensively? Jacksonville, Dallas, Houston.
Dallas has the most underrated defense in the NFL. Their defense is extraordinary.
And now Carolina.
Yeah, no time.
Especially their front seven. The Dallas front seven is as good as any front seven in the National Football League.
Those 4 out of the 5, because we ain't going to count New Orleans because we know they are.
You're making my point.
My point to you is that defense, those defenses are pretty formidable. So the fact that your offensive line isn't good has a profound effect.
Especially because of a quarterback that isn't mobile.
I
You said it yourself.
can't believe
we all know that.
You especially are making my point. They've gone up against elite defenses, so they haven't looked great, especially early in the year. Everyone's new on the line practically. They got to come together. The issue with the line is at right tackle. When they address
That's
right
not
tackle,
true.
which they will do this
That's not the
offseason,
only thing that's an
obviously,
issue with the
that's the
offensive
main
line.
issue. Otherwise, they're going to be okay.
Gonna be.
Once-
They haven't been.
But by the way, even when you say either you're good or you're bad, there's 32 teams. If you're like the 22nd or 20th best offensive line, you're at least NFL caliber.
We know you think Eli's the
The
issue.
5 games you saw, that offensive line was abysmal.
All right.
And for you to be the 20th or 22nd ranked offensive line in the NFL, there's no way that you're going to tell me that you as a fan have championship aspirations if you only have the 20th or the 22nd best offensive line in the NFL. For the most part, teams that make it into the playoffs or reach the Super Bowl, they normally have at the very least a top 10 offensive line by the end of the season. If you cannot protect the quarterback, you're not going to win football games. If you cannot run block, you're not going to win football games.
The big takeaway from this segment, Max says that the New York Football Giants should sign Colin Kaepernick.
Right.
We'll keep it moving. Kirk Cup.
Molly Karam said, we'll keep it moving. In other words, Max, make sure you gulp down this strong cup of shut the fuck up. But anyway, peace.